Okay guys, so in this video I'm going to show you how to do a collapse effect of an element which height you don't know. Now what does that mean? Well, if you're new to CSS and you've never tried this before, you'll see that this hover effect here, where basically I have a element that I can interact with. Now in this case I have a hover, but this works for any element that you can just interact with, and what you want to achieve is this collapse effect that you can see when I hover away we actually collapse the content. This is very common with like drop downs and chevrons and all of that stuff. Now you see the problem with this is that when you start working, you will probably get it into your head that, all right, I have some content. All I will do is that I will simply say, okay, I will set the height to some value, right, with CSS. And that only works if you already know what the height is. However, you cannot do this if you don't know what the height is. In other words, you can't actually do the animation if you don't know the height itself. So how do we get around this? Well, I'll show you. So the idea here is that we will use a little bit of JavaScript to achieve this effect. So here's the markup, right? So what we're doing here is that we have this hover element that just says hover me, and then internally we have this little content here which has a lot of text. Now we can imagine, just for the sake of argument, that okay, we don't actually know what the height of this element is, because if the height is not set, well, we don't know. And you, as I said, you have to know the height in order to be able to animate the height. Otherwise, it won't actually work. So the way that you can achieve this is to use a little bit of JavaScript. So we grab the element, and then we grab the scroll height of that element, right? And then we use a variable. Like we can simply just use this little variable here where we set the max height to whatever height it is. And if we then look at our CSS, which is fairly trivial, like this is just some basic styling right here, right? So then we have this div, the content area, that has this little transition effect that is just going to fire on the max height, and then over 0.5 seconds we're going to animate this one, right? So it starts out as being hidden and having a max height of 0. As I said, because we don't know what the height will be. I mean, if I change to this content, if I do this, like something like that, I just copy paste some extra stuff right there. So now all of a sudden you see the problem. Like now the height of our element changed, so we can't hard code it in our HTML, or sorry, in our CSS, because if we did, our value would be incorrect. And this is especially a big problem when you have some type of component that has different text, different amounts of content on each render or each page, that sort of thing. So that's why we simply set the max height to 0 to start off with, and then we have this thing here. So we have this hover me element. So when we hover over that element, we are going to access the content area, and then we're simply going to, this is just to start off with. So we simply set the max height variable to, yeah, whatever it is. It's, as you have noticed, we haven't declared the max height variable anywhere here because it's being set through this piece of JavaScript. So to summarize, what's happening is that first the DOM gets parsed, and the height of this element gets calculated as we're parsing the DOM. Once the height is set, once the browser knows, or rather the DOM knows how high the element itself is, we hit this JavaScript. So we grab the element, we grab the scroll height, and then we set this variable max height so that we can have this element set, and the selector is actually going to fire, so that whenever we hover, we have this nice expand effect. So just play around with it, and hopefully you will find it useful, and have a great day.